novelty chasers. They're boys with new toys. Anything new they'll try. And they're basically got no credibility because people know that. These are the key people who've got to get on side, the early adapters. They've really got a lot of credibility in the organisation. People listen to them. Happens, it's good, happens, doesn't happen. So they're the ones, if you're into change, they're the ones you give all the skills and the training to. You don't try and train the whole organisation. Because the next two groups are really fence sitters and they're watching what happens. Change is going well, they drift that way. Change is going badly, they drift that way. So that's a key one. You don't try and train the whole organisation. And as an outsider, it's very hard for me to know who they are. I have to rely on insiders to tell me who are the real movers and shakers. Use a network mapping concept to try and identify the ones that are pivotal, and you give them the training. And they become your champions, and so on, and they lead the change. Okay, this is 7 ingredients I've found useful. I call them ingredients because it's like making a cake or a stew. It's not a step-by-step, it's not a tick and flick exercise. You can do 3 at once, you can go back and visit one. So it's like making a cake. If you make a cake for adults, it'll be different to what the cake you make for children. Children have more sugar in, more cholesterol. This is a modification of a fellow named John Cotter, looked at why change fails. So reversed the normal way, and he came up with about 7 or 8 ingredients. This is a variation of that, which I've found very useful over the years. He doesn't have this one in, but he has most of the others. Laying a foundation new ways. The first thing in change is you've got to lay that foundation, get people ready for the change. It's like building a house. If you don't lay the foundation right, it doesn't matter what it's like above the ground, the first storm you're going to lose it. Okay, establishing a sense of urgency. Most change fails there because people can't see the need to change. Hey, we're going well, leave us alone. That's why people say, Bill, why do you like going organisations are on their knees? Because they're receptive to change. The ones successful, they leave us alone, we've got the format, get the corporate graveyards full of them. That transitional team we just talked about, get those informal leaders in there. Get the alignment going, that visioning thing. Get connectedness going, which is really linked with teamwork. Change takes time, people lose interest, you've got to have short-term wins. And then you consolidate the improvements. Now that's the 7 ingredients as a mind map. And I think I've got some copies here of, did I bring them, of it on 2 pages. Did I bring it? I'll bring it and leave copies when I come next time. But there's a 2-pager which describes this. So that's as a mind map, shows a pot of stew, that's the mathematical symbol for change. And you can see feeding the ingredients in, and you can go back and revisit any of them any time and so forth. Okay, change is a human journey. You've got to build on the past, you don't bury the past, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Change is a human and personal journey. Nothing changes without personal transformation. You build the right relationships, challenge the status quo, change inappropriate behaviours. In Australia they're working pretty hard on bullying now in schools, trying to make sure bullying is being reduced because cyberbullying is becoming a big issue. Getting people to have the emotional buy-in, so it's their change process. If you want a successful change process, you've got to make sure that the people who are going to be affected by it feel it's their change process. We don't do enough on reflectiveness. You finish an activity or exercise, you should sit down and review. What did we do well? What do we need to improve next time? So, don't do enough of that. Nelson Mandela, when he's travelling in Europe every night, he used to sit down with his staff and say, tell me what I've done wrong today so I won't do it tomorrow. Very, very powerful. Because what are the learnings from it? We all tend to madly rush on to do the same old thing. Need to be willing to feel challenged and feel insecure. And I had a recent example of that. I've been running successful master classes in Australia for 10 years, using professional magazines to advertise in, going pretty well. An associate challenged me and said, you should be using social media. I said, oh, yeah, hang on a minute. I think you've been smoking or drinking something wonderful. And anyway, can you tell me how much it's going to cost me? No, I can't. I said, it's my money you're playing with. It's going to be $5 grand, $10 grand. She said, well, we don't know. We put it on Google and then Google ads and it depends how many hits and et cetera, and so on. And talking a bit of a foreign language in some ways. And so I had a few sleepless nights because it's my money. It's not the government's money or some big corporation. It's my own of my money she wants to play with, and she's pretty evasive on telling me how much it's going to cost. And by the early bird, we paid for the whole thing. So I've gone from a complete cynic of social media to a real apostle. It's unbelievably powerful. If you're in change, it's a brilliant communication tool. We were running a workshop in America. We put the questionnaire on LinkedIn, and within 24 hours we had 30 replies, so we had a basis for the workshop that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And if you've got, they tell me, 1 million mobile phones in Fiji, and you only got 800,000 people, and most of those will be connected some way to the internet. Great source of, using that to a huge advantage. To your staff, the whole lot. You get instant feedback. And so forth. They don't have to wait. The television stations in Australia now don't have to wait 3 or 4 weeks to do their ratings. They used to give you a diary, you could fill it in, then you send it back. They know instantly. Once the program starts, through the social media, they know it instantly. If you want to get a response from Telstra quickly, you put a thing on, you Twitter about them, and you'll get a response. There's 86% response within 60 minutes. If you try and ring them up, you'll be delayed hours. My story was I was rung one afternoon and they delayed me, chuffed me all around. Finally got through to the people I needed to, but they'd already gone home. So I had to start again the following day. But if you Twitter, you'll get a response. So, and they've got 60 people permanently in Telstra on the social media following adverse comments. Oxford, the next biggest one's got about 25, 26 people. So you'll get a much bigger response. And I was tested out because my wife's got a rare autoimmune disease, and we were fighting an insurance company on a claim, and so I thought I'd test this out. I just put a general thing on Twitter saying, isn't it interesting the delaying tactics insurance companies use on payouts? And within 24 hours, they're the biggest 2 insurance groups in the world going to follow me. And so on. I've got a friend who hates Qantas. He has a $100 camera and a video camera, and he gets bad service at Qantas. He films it and puts it straight on YouTube. They hate him, but he gets a pretty good response from them. But I'm not saying you should do that, but I mean, it's real. We'll get to. I want to talk a bit about neuroscience, how the brain works. This has put the science into change management. Before neuroscience came along, it was trial and error, and it was an art. It's now becoming a science because they put electrodes and follow the blood flows and electrical impulses on your brain. So we now know what works, what doesn't. If we get time, I'll try and have a go at some of these others, but I'm a bit conscious of time. Evolutionary psychology, the 9 basic human instincts, the importance of storytelling. Storytelling is very important in change. People remember the stories, they don't remember the 6 dot points on the PowerPoint. If you tell a good story, and all good leaders are very good storytellers. Martin Luther King, when he got up in front of Abraham Lincoln's statue in the 1960s after that Civil Rights March, he didn't say I had a strategic plan or a corporate plan. He said I have a dream, I have a story. They still show that to school kids, and even though it's black and white, it still has a very powerful thing. We all have thinking biases. If you want to understand collective behaviour, look at the social networks and a bit on motivation, persuasion. If we get time, chaos theory, complexity, volatility, and the speed of information transfer. Okay. All this reinforces that change is very circumstantial. Just because it works this year in Suva doesn't mean next year is going to work. Things have changed. And the classical one was this: when they were developing a model to predict the weather, they had 10 decimal points, I think it was, and they actually summarised it down to 2, and they got completely different answers out of the computer. So little things can make big differences. Soft skills, we'll get to that. Okay. Changing people's behaviour. I'll go through that quickly. Lack of energy. This is one of the most important things in change, and for the brain. The brain is only 2% of the body weight, of your body weight, but uses 20% of this body's energy. And historically, it's an energy-saving device. That's why if it doesn't have enough food, doesn't have enough water or oxygen, it goes into a bit of a siege mentality. So if your staff aren't eating properly, aren't drinking properly, 80% of the brain is water, and a simple way to test whether your body's enough water is the colour of your urine. The darker it is, the worse the situation is. You need to get a drink pretty quickly. And food takes about 15 minutes from the time it hits your stomach to get to the brain, etc. So I have two clients. One runs a school, and it's in a low socio-economic area in Brisbane. Therefore, the kids come to school, and he's pretty well guaranteed they've had no breakfast. So how in the hell can you expect kids to concentrate when they've got an empty stomach? He gives them breakfast when they arrive. Another guy runs a construction company. He gives the guys breakfast when they turn up. Because most people just probably have a cigarette, a cup of coffee, and run to work. We have the wrong way around. You should have breakfast like a king or a queen, lunch like a prince or princess, evening meal like a beggar. We tend to do it the other way around. Eat big at night and you sleep on it, and that's when you have problems with your stomach starting to go out. So we've got the wrong way around as far as the brain is concerned. Because the brain, the most energy expensive part of the brain, or exhausting part of the brain for you, is the frontal cortex. That's the thinking part of the brain. It's the latest part of the brain that's sort of in development and makes us different from a lot of primates, etc. And that's the thinking part, and that's where you're pushing people to in chains. So if they ain't got enough glucose, ain't got enough water, and also if they haven't got enough sleep, that's the other one. If you've been working long hours for 2 or 3 days, your thinking ability is like a drunk person. We don't reward drunk people at work, but we reward people who work crazy hours. If you are tired at night working, you're crazy to keep on working. What you've got to do is stop, set your alarm an hour or half an hour earlier and get up and do it. When I came here over a month ago, I've been flying all day. I had to do some work because I had a presentation on Monday. I started on Sunday night. I was zonked out, so I just stopped, set my alarm an hour early, got up, and in half an hour I knocked off that work. And if you have to catch up on sleep, don't sleep in. That upsets your biological rhythm. You've got to go to bed early. And the power nap is a very good idea. That's giving the brain a chance to recover. So there's some things to think about and so forth. About eating and even exercise. Before we sat down behind computers, etc., we used to walk about 20 kilometres a day on the savannah. So your body's built for that. It's not built for sitting in an office or a factory or sitting behind a computer screen. And deep breathing, if you're feeling a bit tired, take a few deep breaths is a good idea. It's one of the few benefits of smoking. It makes you take deep breaths. But there's a lot of disadvantages of it. Okay. Yeah, there's a bit on the mind. I'm getting a bit conscious because I want to get to so there's a bit. The brain is an error detecting device. It's more worried about threats, so it sees change as a threat. So you've got to sell the rewards of change and also say, hang on a minute, it's only changing a few things, not changing the whole organisation. You've got to sell it the right way. Because otherwise the brain, that's a survival mechanism, will see it as a threat, and that's the error detecting machine's default position. And the brain is like water going down a river. It'll choose the least line of resistance, and that's basically going into the routine or area where it's familiar. And that's why it's very hard to push people out. If you think the first time you learnt to drive or drive the car, it was hard work because you didn't have the neural connections, and it's probably harder work for the person teaching how to drive. But after a while, it becomes second nature because you get the right connections going in your brain. And that's what you're fighting. People want to go back to what they're familiar with, or the brain wants to go back to it because it's comfortable there. And it's not using much energy. If you're making it think differently, you're challenging it. Other thing that's of interest is the good and bad neurochemicals whiz through your body. If you're in a reward and happy, you've got the right chemicals running around your body. If you're under stress, you've got the bad ones running around. Now we were built for just a surge of the bad ones and then a relaxing of it. In other words, you'd be out and maybe you saw a predator and you had to run quickly or fight it, and then after you got away or killed the thing, you're okay. But now, with our living under sort of chronic stress in our modern living, we're getting too much of those bad chemicals there all the time.